And we are recording. Chair LaHood, would you like to introduce the meeting?
Sure. This is the remote regular meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Compliance and Amendments Committee for the City and County of San Francisco. The public call-in phone number is 1415-906-4659, meeting ID 690-009-453#. If anyone who is on the phone would like to make a statement during general public comment, or if you would like to comment on a matter on the agenda at the appropriate time, please press *6 to unmute your phone to speak. Plus, press *6 again to mute your telephone once you are done with your statement. If you have not done so yet, please mute your phones now so we don't get unnecessary background noise. This is July 27th for 33 p.m. The remote access information and participation in accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order number N3320 declaring a state of emergency regarding the COVID-19 outbreak and Mayor London N. Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency issued on February 25th, 2020, including the guidance for gatherings issued by the San Francisco Department of Public Health Officer, aggressive directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized their board and committee meetings to convene remotely via Microsoft Teams and will allow remote public comment via video conference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comments by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made a part of the official record. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available at sfbos.org/sunshine. I've already given the public comment call-in number. If you missed it earlier, is 1415-906-4659. The meeting ID is 690-009-453#. As the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to be updated on the current situation as it affects the legislative process. For meeting decorum, any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and/or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. Cheryl, please call the first item.
Item number 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Roll call. Member Neighbors.
Present.
Member Neighbors present. Member Wong.
Present.
Member Wong present. Chair LaHood.
Present.
Chair LaHood present. We have a quorum. I am not aware of any agenda changes since this agenda was uploaded last Friday. Does anyone have any changes or anything that would be substantive?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Should we go to item 2?
Yes, please.
Item 2, approval of the June 22nd, 2021 Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting minutes. That's a typo there. Now I have a copy of the minutes. Does anybody have any changes or suggestions related to this month's minutes?
Members, do you have any changes?
This is number 1, nothing from me.
Okay. Member Neighbors?
Nothing from me either.
Okay. Chair LaHood?
I thought I saw something. Oh, yes. In item number 9, it's just a minor typo. In the action, it says to continue the matter to the call of the call. I think it's just supposed to be to the call of the
chair, right?
Chair. That's a minor thing that I just noticed. I don't have any other changes. Let's open it up for public comment. One thing I'd like to say before we open things up for public comment, if you're going to be commenting anonymously, please, if you're the first person, give yourself a number. And if you speak later in the meeting, please use that number consistently so that we can identify which anonymous if there is more than one speaker who is anonymous, that we can tell which is which, and so that all anonymous speakers are not conflated as one persona. Thank you. And Ms. Leger will give you, let's start a line. Is there any public comment on the minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Warfield. Do we have other
Anonymous
speakers?
number 3.
Anonymous number 3, okay. Do we have other speakers? Well, I guess no other speakers. Shall we start with Mr. Warfield, Chairla Hood?
Yes, please. Ms. Leger will give you the signal when she's ready with the timer.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
Ready when you tell me to start.
Okay, you may begin.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and also by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. In a democracy, open meetings, open government, and public comment in person are the law, certainly in California and in San Francisco. And there's a reason for that. And one of the reasons, as far as I'm concerned, is that people can see each other, approach each other, hear each other, and get together if they like. Can't happen when it's a remote meeting, unless you do something mitigating, in which case that's what I have done. I have stated how to get in touch with Library Users Association at this point every time that I make public comment. So it's easy for folks who are listening or looking at the minutes. Once again, you seem to have not only gotten that wrong, no mention of any contact information, even though I've mentioned it and said it's important a number of times. So the first thing is that multiple references to Library Users Association, despite however many times I've said it, have omitted the word association. So it's Library Users multiple times. And I think that includes agenda item 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. On the other items, there has been a correct mention of the name, but not the contact information, which, as I said, I consider to be an essential aspect that I try to mitigate of meetings. The meeting minutes, unfortunately, I think are very, very vague in many respects, lacking detail. And I have to say that I think you should postpone the approval because the audio is not on as of today. I checked with the audio and there was no audio posted on the website. So let me just go through some of the issues. Item 3, Peter Warfield commented on the limit of listing contact information in minutes. What is the limit? What are the limits? Peter Warfield talked about previous complaints. No, I spoke of a specific complaint that I wanted to have followed up, the complaint that we made about the Library Commission, in which you found in violation as a full task force on June 2nd. And I gave some reasons for that as well, why that needed to be followed up. There's many details in other items that I think need to be provided. Thank you.
Do we have another speaker, Anonymous 3?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready, sir?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. If Mr. Warfield is correct, and I have every reason to believe that he is, that the audio is not yet posted, I would also encourage you to not approve without the audio being made public. That being said, I'd ask for a few specific corrections that either now or whenever you do this later on, you look at. The first is the prior actions by the SOTF in item 8 are wrong, where it says on October 7th, 2020, the SOTF did all that stuff. That's not what the SOTF did on October 7, 2020. What they did is actually in item 8's caption heading, all of those violations you found, which don't for some reason match up the 3 that you mentioned in the little blurb. And that's important because when this goes back to the full task force, as you send it back to the full task force, they should know exactly what the violations are. Since specifically you're asking SOTF to consider an additional violation in your motion. So if you could correct that blurb of the history to accurately reflect the history of that complaint, that would be useful. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir, could you tell me which complaint it is? I'm sorry, I was trying to type. Yeah.
Sure, it's item 8, file 19098, and the error is the sentence starting with on October 7th, 2020. That full sentence is wrong there. What you actually did on October 7th, 2020 is found the 1, 2, 3, 4 violations listed above it.
Okay. Do we have any more public commenters?
Okay, hearing no further public comment. Cheryl, do you understand? Do you have a clear sense of what changes you're planning on making, given the recent comments?
I think so. It was
Okay.
November 7, 2020 minutes, item number 19098. And that
Okay.
was the task force meeting.
Right. And then Mr. Warfield's updates. I am going to recommend that I think moving forward with the suggested corrections would be great, but I think maybe it would be a good idea to hold off on approval until the audio is available, because I do know that members of the public like to cross-reference and make sure that they can hear that ahead of time. So committee members, would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then I am going to and I suppose we should have made I'm going to make a motion that we wait to approve until our next meeting when the audio will be available.
This is Member Neighbors, I'll second.
This is Victor Young. May I suggest language be continued to the call of the chair as amended?
We will take that. Continued to the call of the chair as amended. Thank you, Victor.
And Laurie second, Member Neighbors second.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we want public comment on this motion?
I believe we've already taken, we already took public comment. I don't think we need to take public comment again.
Excuse me for typing all this stuff. I want to make sure I get it right.
Sounds good.
All right, so we need to take a vote.
Yes, please. Member Wong, you're saying we don't need to take a vote to the call of the chair?
That's what I thought. Yes.
Okay.
As we are video, we do want a voice vote, as members of the public cannot see. And we always recommend a roll call vote, at least. We do recommend a roll call vote the majority of the times, no matter what the action is.
Let's call for a vote then, please.
Okay. Chair LaHood.
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Member Neighbors.
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Wong.
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Moved by Chair LaHood, seconded by Member Neighbors to continue the matter to the call of the chair as amended. No public comment on the motion.
Call the next item, please.
Item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda.
Do we have people who would like to make public comment? Let's take a line again. So if you, who would like to make public comment today?
Peter Warfield.
Thank you, Mr. Warfield. Who else would like to make public comment today?
Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, you're next in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment today on items not on the agenda?
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous number 3. We have Mr. Warfield, Mr. Sullivan, anonymous number 3. Is there anyone else on the call who would like to make public comment today on items not on the agenda?
This is general public comment.
Okay, we're not hearing anyone at the moment. Remember, it's *6 to unmute yourself. We will make another call again once we get past the third speaker. So if you've had trouble unmuting yourself, don't worry. Please wait until we finish with the third speaker. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, please let Mr. Warfield know.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
I am. Just let me know when to start.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I think I have said this before, and I'll say it again. I think that your motions should be much more detailed when you have had a specific discussion about why you, for example, have decided to change the minutes and/or postpone approval. The vagueness of to the call of the chair as amended without any mention of why, I think is wrong, and we know that likely the vaguified minutes are not going to show why this happened. Considering how difficult it seems to be for the task force to get basics right, like our group name, our address, I think it would be useful to say, this is what the problem is, this is how we want to fix it. I have also requested, and I'd like to go further into this, a follow-up by your committee and/or other committees on the task force with regard to our successful complaint against the library users, against the Library Commission regarding their meeting procedures and so on, which resulted in our not being able to make a comment on the most important item of the July meeting, which was the library's reopening plan. You, as a full body, found that the library was in violation. Unfortunately, there was no specific detail provided during the meeting, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing by the library other than the vague term technical problems. I was very glad that Dean Schmidt noticed that we had also mentioned the cost factor and that they were unlawfully basically charging a very high premium for people to call in to a San Jose area code, which, as I said, was 59 cents at the time plus tax. The library has further indicated its willful ignoration of what you have done because they changed nothing in their later June meeting. When we commented on the during public comment, they did not include it in the draft minutes, and when we objected in July to the draft minutes and said, this is what we specifically said, they simply ignored it and so left it as Peter Warfield spoke about a complaint that was filed against the library at the Sunshine Task Force. Nothing about the determinations, nothing about the issues, nothing concrete. So I ask you to take it up for follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Sullivan, you are next in line. When Ms. Leger is ready, she will let you know that you may begin to speak.
Sir, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead.
At the last meeting, I had uttered one word and not answered before a voice interrupted me with lie. I'd like to be able to finish my supposed lies before being accused or implied that I am about to lie. Afterwards, people can accuse me of lying. And the task force echoes the instability of an interruption shouted by implying I'm about to lie. It only reinforces the behavior. The exchange was unfair to me or any petitioner. Respondents have been trying to smear me in many ways, which I do not have time to go into. Anyone who has listened to me in the proceedings know I do not interrupt. I am civil and respectful. I argue on facts and reason. I do not lie. I do realize it was not the intent of the chair. A group of citizens are an entity. Respondents claim they are just like a book club. In this case, the book club is named Mission Dolores Green Benefit District Formation Committee. That does not give you a clue as to the purpose. Their website would have too. The respondents claim that they were exploring many options beside a green benefit district, but there is no evidence of this. Regardless, exploring other options or other activities does not matter if one action in question is being done in the interest of government officials. In this case, the city paid for this activity, hired a contractor to facilitate and do most of the work, and GBD program manager and other city officials actively helped out in trying to create a green benefit district. From the Epstein versus Business Improvement District court case, which is now fully in my complaint file, needless to say, if local businessmen want to form property owners associations to try to improve their local community, they are free to do so. They may hold their meetings in secret by invitation only, or may invite the general public limited by whatever laws, if any, are applicable to such groups. However, participation in such purely private, purely voluntary organizations differ dramatically from participation in bid. For example, membership in a private business ownership organization is voluntary, and presumably membership can be terminated at will. In contrast, membership in a bid may be involuntary for a majority of the property owners within the bid. The only prerequisite to creation of such a bid is not a petition filed by a majority of property owners in the proposed district, but by a petition filed by property owners who will pay more than 50% of the total of assessments to be levied. In the case of GBDs, it is only 30%. And once the bid is created, membership lasts for at least 5 years, 15 years for a GBD, and cannot be voluntarily terminated by the individual members. The Epstein case is a good read for anyone interested in application of sunshine on private entities and the government activities and goals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anonymous number 3, you're next in line, and Ms. Leger will let you know when she's ready with the timer.
Thank you very much.
Are you ready, sir?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to give you a brief summary of the presentation I made at the Board of Supervisors. There I had slides. I don't have them here, so I'm just going to describe it in the air. And this is about the general contempt for sunshine across city officials. And we're going to begin with Mayor London Breed. Now, I think this task force is well aware, at least some people are, that both Sean Ellsburn, her chief of staff, and London Breed delete their actual texts. But Sean Ellsburn takes screenshots of Breed's text to send to other staff. And I asked for those screenshots, and Sean Ellsburn, the former supervisor and current chief of staff, accidentally replied all back to me instead of the mayor's lawyer, Hank Heckel, who comes before this task force. And the email says, Hank, comma, nice try, I delete the screenshots too. And this just shows you the contempt that these so-called public officials have for letting the public know what they do on the public's dime and on the public's business. The next example is for District Attorney Chesaboudin. And in this case, their director of communications emailed one reporter stating, quote, we are legally prohibited from discussing anything related to a juvenile case. And then one of their ADAs, their chief of victim services, actually texted contact information in that juvenile case about the witness and someone related to that witness, email address, phone, name, to a different reporter. What's the difference? One of those reporters gave friendly coverage to the district attorney, the other did not. And the last example is the city attorney, Dennis Herrera. And I think I've told this task force before how a day prior to the court filings becoming public in the lawsuit by the city against the Board of Education, they sent what they labeled a confidential draft of litigation material to a specific reporter. They, of course, did not give their competing reporters, say at the Examiner, the same access that they gave to the Chronicle. And normally such litigation draft material is, as you know, attorney work product privileged. But that's not the only way. And the reason I give these three examples is it has nothing to do with the politics or ideology of any of these officials. These three officials aren't exactly on the same side of the SF spectrum of politics. But that has no relevance. What's relevant here is public officials using their subordinates, using their access to public information, and selectively disclosing or abusing that access in order to aggrandize themselves. And that's wrong, and such selective disclosure is wrong under the Public Records Act, and it's illegal under the Public Records Act. And I hope to bring a number of complaints to this task force. It's not on the agenda today, to show how these officials and many others violate the law. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comments. Is there anyone else wishing to make general public comment today? If you're having trouble unmuting yourself, please press *6. This is the last call for public comment. Okay, I don't think we have any further public comment. I am hearing some background noise. If you're on the phone and you are not speaking on a particular matter, please press *6 to mute yourself. Ms. Leger, please call the next item.
Just a moment. Item number 4, file number 20079, complaint filed by Shane Anderes against Chesapeake Dean and the District Attorney's Office for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721E by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and complete manner. 6725 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and complete manner. 6726 by failing to keep withholding to a minimum. And 6727 by failing to provide justification for withholding responsive records. Shall I read the preamble?
Yes, please.
On June 22nd, 2021, the Compliance and Amendments Committee moved to continue the matter to the call of the chair. The committee requested that the Task Force Deputy City Attorney provide guidance or an analysis on the appropriateness of the task force pursuing information regarding settings on application/programs such as Signal, which allow for the auto deletion of messages, and to find out if it falls under the umbrella of metadata information.
So, committee members, I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion about this. I had a chance to speak with Mark and Helen, and they gave some advice. And actually, I'd like to know if we have petitioner and respondent here. I don't know that they necessarily need to be here, but I'd like to know, is Mr. Andrews here, or is anyone from the district? Sorry, please.
Do we have someone speaking? If you need to speak.
This is Robin Burke from the District Attorney's Office.
Okay. And Mr. Anderes? Mr. Anderes, are you with us? This is a Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting.
This is Tom Osley. He's on the call, so there might be something wrong with him being muted.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. Mr. Andrews, if you try pressing *6, I know it's the same for muting and unmuting, so you might have muted yourself. I'm going to go ahead and speak anyway, because there are a few things I wanted to say first and to discuss with the committee members.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, I don't, okay. I'm not sure exactly. I was *6ing a few times and wondering what was happening, but I apologize.
We're glad to have you here. I think some of the actions might have canceled each other out. So I was saying I want to have a discussion with the committee members on what I learned in speaking with our our advisors, the assistant city attorneys. So as we know, this was a public records request initially, and we have an order of determination. We're here for compliance, and some information has been transferred. The respondents' representatives have said that a search was conducted, and in terms of the Signal app, which is where we are at the moment, they said no responsive records were found within the Signal app. We've been advised by our legal counsel that Signal settings on a device alone, absent a message, are not a public record, and thus beyond the scope of our jurisdiction. But I have a little bit more to say on this. We also talked about, the respondent has said that searches were conducted and described the methods of those searches to this committee in previous hearings. This committee did not request that the respondent provide copies of the specific instructions that were given to staff to conduct those searches. We asked some questions about that, but we didn't ask for the documentation. That is something that we might have done and would be within our purview. However, if we do that, we could be establishing a procedural standard, and I think we might have difficulty in maintaining that consistently for all petitioners. Of course, and I think it's important to mention this, that the petitioner in this case, or any member of the public, is welcome to request copy of public records from the district attorney's office that might contain such instructions to staff and responses to them. But at this point, I don't know that there's much more that we can do, regarding the Signal app settings. Another thing that's come up in the course of this case and others, we've heard some discussion about the fact that city employees might be using apps with disappearing messages, even though they're not supposed to be using personal devices for city business, and doing so in some instances could be interpreted as a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance requirement for maintaining records in a business-like matter. And member neighbors, I think you were the one who brought that up at our last meeting. We do find this is an interesting point, and I think it's something that the task force should be paying closer attention to and perhaps providing some guidance on. At this time, I don't think there's any further compliance to be conducted regarding this matter, and specifically the Signal settings. Of course, if new compliance issues arise regarding this order of determination, we're willing to consider them at future committee meetings. That was kind of a statement by me. Members, I want to give you a chance. Member neighbors, I see you speaking, but it looks like you're on mute.
Oh, I don't think I'm on mute.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for the clarification. I'm so glad that we were able to hear from Mark and Helen regarding that request. And I just want to verify that I still am very concerned about 6729(7)A. Mm-hmm. Which is maintaining all correspondence and records in a business-like manner, professional manner, because I think any automatically deleting or even manually deleting device is going to put someone in violation of that. I wanted to know if in the course of that, while it's not within our purview then to kind of adjudicate that request right now, was there any sense that the members of the public could request logs of setting changes over a particular period of time when they're looking for potential records?
That's an interesting question. I mean, and my question to you and to Member Wong, is that a document? Is that a document that exists, or is it something that is that someone would be asking to be created?
I mean, my understanding is it's a document that exists, much like your stream of text exists, or again, Member Wong's a software engineer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it's just is a record. Just like you could have an access of a record on your computer, when you turned it on, when you turned it off, when you did different functions, it wouldn't be created. You could access that as well if you knew where to access it. And my understanding with Signal is that it's a function of the app itself, that it's a rolling record. But I could be wrong.
Member Wong, do you have anything that might be helpful to share with us and others attending this meeting?
Sorry, I missed the exact type of information that you were referring to.
Member Neighbors, would you mind repeating that?
Sure. My understanding is that when on Signal, when you change your app settings, there's a rolling log of changes to app settings. So you would have a log that says, on July 22nd, change to automatically delete in 5 minutes, or on July, 30th, changed or turned off auto delete or whatever, that you would be able to see that, and that wouldn't be a record to generate. It would be an existing record on an individual's phone on the app.
So I'm guessing that it's pretty unlikely for a company like Signal or a lot of software engineering companies, I guess, to be recording that type of information in a log, just because it's not, I wouldn't say it's like specifically useful to customers, and probably not to the companies themselves either. But I mean, I couldn't say specific, I feel like it would be most useful for most likely the customer support team. If people call in and want to know like why something happened, there would be some record of that. But yeah, I don't know.
So I guess in my mind, that would be one avenue to get clarity on, for maybe just for anyone who's wanting to continue down that road of determining what kinds of Signal records that they can make public records requests for. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I think this is a key. We've heard in public comment today that not all public officials have the deepest respect for sunshine. And also some public officials don't understand the gravity of what they're doing when they delete public records. So I think we want to make sure that we're not just going along with Signal app, not public records, that we're kind of continuing to encourage the public to probe the pieces of it that we can find jurisdiction on and make orders of determination on, that we will keep plugging away at it. We're not gonna give up.
And I would follow up and say, yes, requests can be made, and if members of the public feel as though the requests for public records are not being responded to in an appropriate way, then a complaint can be filed, and then we can respond to that. But at this point, this committee going in and saying many steps down the line in a situation like this, and requesting things that weren't actually part of the initial request begins to complicate our function and our service to the community. I would like, members, do you have anything else to say, or should I give the petitioner and respondent maybe a brief moment to offer comment from their perspectives, and then we could open this, or actually we would need a motion, and then we could open it up for public comment. But do either of you have anything else that you would like to say, or should we give the petitioner and respondent a moment to speak?
This is Member Wong. So I guess one more thing I would like to point out is just, I believe under the California Consumer Privacy Act, I think there's a way for individuals to be able to request data. And so I wonder, or you can only request your own data, both to have full record of it yourself and or to request for it to be deleted. And so that's something we often consider at tech companies, and it could be another avenue for, I don't know if there's a way for us to compel city employees to give that information and or request it that way from the companies that they are, whose apps they're using. But
right.
Just another point I wanted to make.
Yeah, I think one other thing that is possible, if you know that two people have been communicating on an app, there is a record of, I believe, if something has been deleted in that chain of communication. So there is a record there, but you would have to know specifically the two individuals between whom the conversation was happening to make the request for that specific record. So do we have a motion? Or actually, no, I said I wanted to give Mr. Andrews, I would like to, based on what we've said, I'd like to give you a brief moment to speak, and then I am going to give Ms. Burke a chance to respond as well before we make our motion and open it up for public comment.
Lila,
yes.
3 minutes.
Yes, let's do 3 minutes, because we've talked quite a bit on this matter before, and this was, we're trying to refine what we're able to do in this situation. So, Mr. Andrews, please go ahead.
Okay. Can everyone hear me before I continue?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I realized the Signal app issue sort of took on a life of its own with respect to the request that started all of this. But I'd like to try now focus on just one of the ordinance regulations in particular, and that's 67.26, withholding kept to a minimum, for a couple of reasons. One, there was comment that the committee, there was nothing further it could do in respect to Mr. Osley's request in terms of getting this Signal data. And there was reference to the fact that Mr. Campos provided some sort of an explanation about the extent of the search done, and that perhaps we could ask for some sort of written confirmation of that, but there was concern that would create some sort of precedent. And I just want to disagree with all of that and say that the ordinance allows this committee to do just that, and frankly, it should have already been done in this respect. Number one, 67.26 says that if you're going to withhold documents, first of all, the person who's doing the search and the explaining for why there isn't anything or how it was done it's supposed to be the person actually engaged in the search. Now, Ms. Burke is here today. She was here for the first two hearings, and she was the one that said specifically that they only searched Mr. Boudin's email, so it wasn't sufficient. At least the initial search wasn't. And then that's how we got into, text messages and Signal and so forth, okay? But then Mr. Campos was the one who showed up at the last hearing and just in very vague general terms said, yes, we asked, and I'm reading from the committee's own agenda notes here, Mr. Campos stated that all employees were requested to provide any responsive documents, okay? And I think there was some confusion because I believe it was a committee member that said, I believe if he says he sent a memo to everybody asking for information, he's a public official. We have respect for him, and we don't think any more is needed. And first of all, I don't think he ever said that by not coming out and saying that wasn't the case. Arguably, it was a misrepresentation by omission. I don't know, and the committee doesn't know, frankly, what was done. And 67.26 says you're supposed to keep withholding to a minimum, and part of that withholding, at the very least, is to show what was done. Again, had I not had these additional conversations with Ms. Burke, and someone just came in and said, hey, we asked everybody for everything and all we got was his emails, we wouldn't have known that, that wasn't the case. Really, it was only Mr. Boudin's email that was searched. And I also want to make, and let me just cap it off with this very important point. I have a witness here today who will testify. He is a former employee of that office, and he was never asked for any information about my request or Mr. Osley, and so this is news to him. And I think that alone is more than sufficient for this committee to now do what it alluded to in the very beginning, which is ask the DA's office for an explanation of what it did. They produced my letters and internal email communications of my requests. If such a memo or email exists, why was it not produced with everything else? Clearly, it would have to reference Mr. Osley and therefore be responsive. This is not something you have to order. It doesn't set a precedent. Anything like that was sent out should necessarily be included in the response. It is automatically responsive. It causes no issues. It is in line with the ordinance. It doesn't create, problems for your committee going forward. And it's something that certainly I think that Mr. Osley is entitled to after all of this back and forth.
Mr. Andrews, thank you. One thing that I hear what you're saying, except that if you made a request and it was for particular information or public records for a particular period of time, and then the request was made to staff, that would inherently have happened after your request, and so would not be included within the time period encompassed by your request.
So I don't see where that is stated anywhere in the ordinance, and I disagree. And the very fact alone that I make a request and I don't get anything for 6 months is reason enough to nullify that, because everything that might have existed, as we've now been over and over again, it could long be gone, right? I have no idea. And so if the response of this committee is, well, anything past the date of the letter is not, that just doesn't even make sense, because they're producing information about the communications that were after getting the request.
Right. And I accept that the request, what we are considering at this moment is what your request was for. And things that happened after that request are not necessarily going to be within the responsive documents from your original request.
If I may, Madam Chair, this is David Campos.
Yes. Are you speaking, Mr. Campos, for the as the respondent?
Yes.
Okay. We'd also like to give you 3 minutes, although I do realize Mr. Andrews went a little bit over. So if you could keep your comments brief, we would appreciate it.
Away.
Okay. She still has her audio on. Yes, Mr. Campos, if you would like to make a comment, we will take your comments now.
Yes, thank you very much. Again, I want to reiterate what I indicated the last time that I appeared here, that we did an extensive search, and that the fact that that search did not lead to anything else being provided doesn't mean that we failed to comply with our obligations. To the contrary, it simply means that there was nothing else to provide that was responsive. And this notion that I think the way that Mr. Andrews is describing the requirements is actually not how the law is written. It isn't the case that once you requested information for a certain period of time, that becomes an indefinite requirement that you have to continue to provide information beyond the original scope of what was requested, and then you have to update everything else that you do in reference to deliberations around the original request. The reality is that we have an obligation to respond to the request, which we did. We have an obligation to represent to you what we did, which we did. And the question is, do you go beyond that? And at some point, where do you draw the line? Where do you, we care about public records. We try to be as responsive as we can, but we also have an agency to run. And if you have to verify everything that an agency represents to you through a proceeding like this one, at some point, the work of the agency is impacted. And people may very well believe that that's what should happen, but I don't believe, and we don't believe, that that is the intent or the requirement in the law as it is written right now. And so, with all due respect to Mr. Andrews, we have complied with his request. We have given them everything we possibly have, and that's all that the law requires. And we have tried to be as responsive as we can be. but we cannot give him document information that do not exist.
30 seconds.
Additionally, I apologize. This is Robin Burke. I wanted to clarify Mr. Andrews is calling upon a witness that says that he was not requested to pull any information. And when Mr. Campos had mentioned that we did search all employees' accounts, it was a back-end IT search. So we would not have asked employees to manually search their accounts. We did it through our IT department to do a search to make sure that we would capture everything.
Ms. Burke, I have a question on that. So the instructions that were sent out to the IT department, not to individual staff within the department.
I can't speak if it was an instruction or if it was a phone call. I speak to our IT director regularly, but I would have been to him to do a search of the records.
Okay. I appreciate both sides providing their responses and clarification on these matters. I would like to bring this back to the committee members to discuss what action we would like to take at this moment. And I would also like to say requests for public documents can be an ongoing thing, but in order for the task force to be able to do its job, we have to treat requests and complaints discreetly, and we can't just serve as an open pipeline for all document requests from a particular party, with a particular department or with the city. We have to treat them discreetly. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to adjudicate and to make sure that compliance happens if it becomes completely open-ended. So members, yes.
I apologize, but Ms. Burke's statement basically just indicated it couldn't have complied because a back-end search of IT is not asking any of the employees for responsive text messages on their personal phones, which we know every one of them uses. And so those communications were never even searched. So I need to point that out because I know I'm going to get shut down again here, but I'm not understanding why.
Listen, it is not my goal to shut you down. I think you bring up a good point, but it is my understanding in the course of this that part of the I don't know when this person who you said was with the city then left the city, and I don't want to get into this here because we're not re-adjudicating all of this, but I know that part of your complaint was that you were concerned that the search was not done sufficiently, and then there were subsequent follow-up searches and requests of employees. So actually, Ms. Burke, I will ask you to respond. I know if it sounds like the initial search was done as a back-end search, but at a future point in time, I believe, even though I believe you have said this before, because I know we asked you to request regarding Signal, were individual employees subsequently contacted about requests for communications on their personal devices and various text messaging and apps they may have been using. Can you please respond?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. I know that and based on what you just said, the initial search was done as a back-end search of email and documents through the IT department. I know because of this complaint that subsequent searches were done, and it's our understanding that you were required to ask individual employees specifically about their use of Signal, but I believe that also included requests for messages on other messaging apps, whether text message, Slack, Signal, any communication apps they may have been using to communicate with each other on the topics requested by Mr. Andrews.
So
the question is, did you ask individual employees to respond?
I understand the question. Yes. I understand the question. That's not correct. The initial search was a search of the DA's account. And then the subsequent search, when the secondary request came in, was a back-end search.
Okay. So the initial search was a search of messages to and from the DA's account.
Yeah. As was requested.
Okay. And then subsequent searches involved requests to other employees in the department.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Andrews, does that is that helpful?
No. She's telling you exactly what I said. They never talked to any employees. They did a search of his email. She just said they searched his email account, just Mr. Boudin's, and then several months later they did a back-end search of the other employees. That's it. They don't tell us how or who, and they sure didn't do what you said, which is to go find out whether individual employees were having those communications on their phones, whether it be by text message or Snapchat or Signal. I don't care what it is. The point is, it wasn't done. Ms. Burke, to her credit, at least is giving straight answers. Mr. Campos just speechifies about how he's ethical and they've done everything, but there is no
Mr.
response
Andrews,
to anything being done.
Hold on.
Sorry.
I need everyone. Hold on. Mr. Campos, I want to give you a chance to speak.
You just offended me.
Mr. Campos,
Oh, come on, you're a politician. That's not possible.
I need everyone. I'm calling for decorum. Okay. Mr. Andrews, we heard from you. I want to give Mr. Campos a chance to respond. And let's please stick with the matter before us. So, Mr. Campos, would you like to provide additional information about how the search was conducted regarding individual employees and their devices and various communication apps they may have been using?
Okay, quick question.
The point that
Sheila Hood, do you need me to time this?
No, we are just having a conversation now, and we're asking that people keep their remarks concise.
The point that I want to make is that this idea that a former employee says that they never asked, that we never asked them for information. I mean, we're not required to ask former employees who have left the office if they have information that is responsive to a public records request. So we didn't do that, and I don't think that's.
He wasn't former at the time.
To do.
Okay,
That's what you say.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate what I believe. So, Ms. Burke, you said that the email request, the email search was done on the back end. Mr. Andrews, you have previously said that you were not satisfied with the original search, and we understand why. Ms. Burke, additional searches were done on and requests to employees about their communications on their devices. Did you also ask employees to check their own email, or did the IT department expand its email search to other employee accounts?
I think the request that came in subsequently was about any communication from any employee. And so, yes, it would go out to any employee.
So you're speaking about the request for communication on private devices through messaging apps that went out to any employee or every employee?
No. We've complied with the request, and I put it in writing. I don't even know how many times. I think we've been pretty clear that we did all of our searches and are in compliance, and I don't know what else to say at this point.
Members, how would you like to proceed?
Honestly, I'm confused because I thought I remembered that it was specifically stated at our last meeting that a memo was sent out to all employees about those personal devices, or that there was some check made for all employees. So I'm confounded now because it sounds like that's not true. I mean, am I misremembering that or mishearing that now? Other members?
What I understood from our previous conversations was that a request was sent out to all employees regarding their communication. I know that the new request was made to encompass any messaging apps that were being used on personal devices.
Right.
I don't. I think we were under the. Actually, I don't want to say. I was under the impression that the request regarding emails had already happened, and that the response was, "We don't have any."
Yes.
Is that correct? Is that our committee members? Is that our understanding? That we were under the impression that the email request for emails had already been done, the search for emails had already been done, that there was a small number that we were told were being withheld for attorney-client privilege. And Mr. Andrews said, but what about the apps and all of these, that people using their personal devices, which we also know they're not supposed to be using for business communication, but we know that people do use them for convenience, and that we asked that searches be done on employees' personal devices on whatever apps they use to communicate with anyone regarding work matters.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our understanding. Ms. Burke, does this align with what was done? Or is there anything that I've just said that is not in alignment with what your department did? We're not hearing anything. I don't know if Ms. Burke is having trouble with audio.
Oh,
or
I
Mr.
apologize.
Campos.
I apologize.
Okay.
I was muted. Yes, it aligns.
Okay.
It aligns.
Okay. If that is the case, and I know Mr. Andrews has his doubts for various reasons, but at this point, it seems that we are being told what the department has done. Members, do you want to take this any further, or at this point have we? Member Wong, do you have anything to add on this? Would you like to request additional documentation on what was done? I'd like to hear what you're thinking.
Yeah, sure. I honestly, I don't see a way forward. Like, I'm curious if you can think of any other options. I can't think of. I feel like we are now considering if there's any other records that we haven't attempted to request. And honestly, unfortunately, I can't think of anything else that we can do moving forward.
I agree. I think we have asked and made explicit what the ordinance requires of public officials. We have done everything in our power to ensure compliance, and it's understandable that there are doubts about compliance, but at this point I believe we've exhausted everything that we can do with this particular petition. So I think we should probably make a motion and hear from the public at this point.
I think so too, because even I think so too. I think we need a motion.
This is Victor. I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I just want to point out to the original order determination in which the task force referred it to the committee with a question to determine if a signal search was performed on their original request. And I believe the motion should address that question.
Victor, are you suggesting that we make a motion regarding the signal search, or that we make a motion and send it back to the full task force? Because at this point, I think this is just about compliance.
I'm not completely sure what happened in the previous meetings. I'm just looking at the order determination in which the full task force requested a 7-day continuance to allow the district attorney's office to determine if a signal search was performed on the original request. And they referred it to the Compliance and Amendments Committee for monitoring. So
Right.
I believe maybe answer the question and I just want to bring that up. We can leave it at that. I just want to bring up.
I saw that too, and I think that's why we have focused so much on the signal search, because it seemed as though this was the aspect of the search that around which there was a great deal of uncertainty. At this point, I think we have done what we can in terms of requesting. I think we've done what we can in terms of seeking compliance with our order of determination.
But they just said they didn't do it. I'm sorry. I hate interrupting, but they literally just said they didn't do it. And so I don't understand how you can say, I think we've done what we can.
Sorry.
How, if you don't go to the individual employees?
Mr. Andrews, they have said more than once. They have said more than once that they did ask their staff, does anyone have any signal messages?
No, they didn't. They said the opposite. They just said the opposite. They did not ask employees.
Ms.
Burke, please. Then someone say it very clearly for the record. Someone say it for the record that they asked employees.
Okay. Mr. Andrews, we need you to thank you. Ms. Burke, can we make sure we can hear you again? Ms. Burke, we don't hear you yet.
We're here.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps I was saying I was doing too much of the summarizing. Could you please state one more time for the record how you ensured compliance with our request that a search was done of Signal on the district attorney's devices, and that regarding other staff members, that Signal searches and requests for messages of other apps? Can you state succinctly how you conducted that search, or how you requested any responsive records to be provided by employees?
Yes, I did a search of the DA's devices at the time of the request, and I asked people who communicated him via message to do a search of their devices as well.
Okay. And I believe this is what we heard from you in previously, member neighbors. Yes.
Can we just clarify, just so everybody's really clear, when she asked people who communicate, did she ask by email? Did she ask orally? Did she send them a text? How did she ask them?
I think I sent a smoke signal. I'm just kidding.
We need a genuine. I'm sorry. So you said you asked them
orally, but I can't. I don't have it in front of me right now.
Okay, so you asked them orally to provide this, and no one, and they responded verbally that they did not have. Did anyone respond in any messages? I don't have any responsive messages.
I'd have to search.
Okay.
Madam Chair, how many times do we have to sort of repeat what we have said? I mean, I know that Mr. Andrews is never going to be satisfied.
Not when the answers keep changing. You said you asked all employees. Now you're saying you asked the employees who communicated with him by Signal. Based on whose representation? Mr. Boudin's? That's two different statements. Before you said we asked everybody.
This is not a forum for you and Mr. Campos to have this discussion. We welcome you to have a discussion between the two of you somewhere else. We're trying to move this forward. Member Wong.
It's compliant.
I know.
Search, and they did not comply, and you've gotten differing responses, and I'm trying to point that out for you. I'm not trying to be combative or disruptive, but As I've already pointed out, I mean, there was a misunderstanding. Somebody thought there was a memo sent out. Somebody thought there was actual verbal communications, and it keeps getting whittled and whittled and whittled. And now you're about willing to say, let's have a motion on, we asked people who Mr. Boudin told us he communicated with. How is that compliance?
So this is all about public records. And what we're trying to do is ensure that you get access to the public records that you requested and based on the parameters of the search that you requested. We are going to do to the best of our abilities, make sure that your request is satisfied. You're right. There's not a lot that we can do when information is communicated verbally, and you know what we're looking for is responsive public records. And I would like now to bring it back to Member Wong and Member Neighbors about what our next step will be on this matter.
It does seem Victor's correct that our motion needs to map to our task.
Mm-hmm.
I hesitate to say that we find the district attorney's office in compliance or that we are satisfied with their response, because there are some issues that are unresolved. But could we say that to our satisfaction, they have met the terms of our request? As you know, can we say that? Is it a motion that we'd be happy with? Anyone want to help me craft?
I think we have heard from representatives from the district attorney's office that a search was done on the district attorney's devices and that no responsive records were found. I know that Mr. Andrews wanted information about the settings, but given that is a further step and not part of the original request and isn't about a specific record, although from our previous discussion, it seems that Mr. Andrews might attempt to make a record request that has to do with the Signal app, the record of Signal app settings, but that was not a part of the original records request. And this gets to my previous point that we can't let this keep spreading out, that there need to be discrete requests for documents, and then we can help with those discrete requests. As far as this discrete request for responsive documents, it is also not. It is. We do have to take city employees at their word, and when they say yes, I have done this thing, and so Ms. Burke has told us that she searched the district attorney's phone and devices, the Signal app, and other messaging apps that he may have used to communicate. The fact that other staff members were asked verbally, again, there's nothing that we can verify here. We have to accept this response. This is a response. I mean, I suppose we could say we don't accept it, but I don't know what more there is to do on that front, unless either of you has another suggestion. But as far as our request, the responsiveness that I feel as though the department has responded to our requests regarding possible responsive documents within the Signal app on the district attorney's devices and on the devices of other staff members who he may have used those apps to communicate with. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do regarding messages that may have been deleted.
So could you say that in motion?
Well, here's another thing that we need to be careful about, and I think Mr. Young was trying to point us in the right direction, and as was Member Neighbors, that our motion needs to be responsive to the order of determination, and that we need to be careful about not venturing off in too far afield, because we need to make sure that we are helping ensure compliance with orders of determination.
Can I simply move then that we find that DA's, Chesa Boudin and the DA's office are in compliance with the original order of determination for this file.
I would like to say that they are in compliance with the request regarding the additional search on Signal and other messaging apps. Because okay. I would, and and Member Wong, if you have other, I'd like this to be a conversation, and that we come up with a motion that we can agree upon, and that does not cut off other avenues. Because we want to be fair, and we want to make sure that if Mr. Andrews finds other issues that we haven't said, everything is taken care of. But I do believe that this particular subset of questions has been taken care of.
This is Member Wong. That sounds good to me.
Okay, so what is the actual wording of our motion on this?
Do you want me to tell you what I've got so far, Chair LaHood?
Sure.
I don't know who's going to second this, but move that District Attorney Chesa Boudin and the employees of the DA's office, District Attorney's office, are in compliance with the request regarding an additional search on Signal and other messaging apps.
I think it's more, since Mr. Boudin, it does not sound like he did his own search, but that someone else did the search on his device. It sounds like the department.
They're
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say their information technology department conducted the search.
No, it sounds like Ms. Burke conducted the search, but that I guess we can say that the I think we should say that Chesa Boudin and the District Attorney's office have complied with requests for additional search of the Signal app and other messaging apps regarding this order of determination.
Yeah, I would second that.
This is Victor again.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that Chelsea Bodine was part of the original order of determination. That name was not listed specifically. I'm not sure if that person was listed in the original complaint.
Okay, then we can say that the District Attorney's office has complied with the
basically
district.
remove the mention of Chelsea Bodine, as that was not mentioned in the OD. And I would also like to know if you would like to file this matter or not after you make your motion.
Member Neighbors has something to say.
It's Chesa Boudin, not Chelsea.
No,
and,
I know. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's that the case title is Shane Andrews versus Chesa Boudin in the District Attorney's office. I believe he was named in the original.
So he's in the summary. It's like the first paragraph of the OD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we continue, can I ask that everyone mute, please? I'm hearing a lot of background noise, like almost like a television show or something.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Leger, if you could read again what you have at this moment.
Okay. Moved by Member Neighbors, second we don't know yet, that Chesa Boudin and the District Attorney's Office employees have complied with the requests.
No, not employees. Just say District Attorney's Office, because there was some subset of people involved. It does not sound to me like everyone in the department.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. District Attorney's Office have complied with the requests for a search of Signal and other messaging apps. Anything else? sort of feels like it's not finished.
Search of Signal and other messaging apps related to the records request.
Okay.
Can we say and found no additional responsive records?
Yeah. And say the original records request.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Okay. Move that Chesapeake Dean and the district attorney's office have complied with the requests for a search of Signal and other messaging apps related to the records request and have found no additional records requests.
No, the original records request and have found no additional responsive records.
Oh, responsive records, sorry.
But if I want original before so original records request and have found no additional responsive records.
Related to the original records request and have found no additional records.
Responsive records.
Responsive records.
Yes.
Okay, I think we got a motion. We have a second?
This is Member Wong. I'll second the motion.
This is Victor. I don't know if you wanted to add, I don't know if I missed it, if you're going to file this matter or take some other action.
Victor, if we file this matter, for now, if other issues come up, it could, there's the possibility that it could be reopened. Is that correct?
I will defer to Cheryl on that, but usually once we conclude a matter, we do not reopen them.
Yeah.
Okay.
We usually, if you can think there is going to be another issue, we would just continue it to the call of the chair.
Members, I'd like to ask, at this point, I think we have reached the end of the road, but I get the sense from the petitioner that Mr. Andrews, that he does not necessarily feel that way, so I do not feel entirely comfortable filing this. But I do feel comfortable supporting this motion. And if Mr. Andrews, if there's something else that comes up related to this order of determination that he feels is requires our, taking another look at this, I would be fine. I don't want to close off that avenue, even though I do believe we've gone as far as we can regarding the Signal message search and other messaging apps. How do you feel about that?
This is Victor again. I just caution doing a continue to the call without some sort of deadline. Otherwise, these types of matters can go into limbo where there's just no action taken. If you set a time limit or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just throwing things out at you right now. There's no precedence for this, but maybe continue it for 90 days, and if no action is taken, the matter will be filed or something like that. And that's just off the top of my head. I'm not sure if it's ever been done in that manner before, but I just don't like things being continued in limbo.
I understand that. Member Neighbors, how do you feel about adding to the motion with a recommendation for filing if no further issues are raised within a particular period of time?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like you, I'm not comfortable in filing now, but give it a little bit of time. That sounds great.
Do you do you want to say 60 days?
Let's do 60.
Okay.
90 seems like a long time. So
yeah,
if it's coming again, let's keep it fresh in our minds.
Okay. So okay.
All right. So how do we want to word this motion? Do you want me to say it again?
Sure.
All right. Moved by Member Neighbors, second by Member Wong, to move that Chesa Bodine and the District Attorney's Office have complied with requests for a search of Signal and other messaging apps related to the original records request and have found that no additional responsive records. And period. And then we request what in 60 days?
This case will be filed if no.
May I suggest that matter be filed if the chair does not schedule the matter for hearing within 60 days?
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
And Member Wong, do you accept the modifications from the original motion, or from Member Neighbors?
Shall I read it again? Are you sure? We're all set?
Okay. I think we're set, and I would like to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this matter?
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous number 3. We're going to create a queue. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment on this matter?
Yes, please, Peter Warfield.
Mr. Warfield, you're next in line. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment on this matter? Okay, we've got 2 people so far. I will ask for one last call after our 2 speakers. Anonymous number 3, if you wait for Ms. Leger to give you the signal, and then you may begin speaking.
Thank you.
Are you ready, sir?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So you're about to make a procedural error here, and that's because there's some administrative confusion on what happened in this case. The full task force never actually found a violation or no violation. It was about to do so, and then instead there is a motion to refer to this committee to gather more information. You have now gathered that information, and you need to send it back to the full task force to make a ruling. There is no actual ruling if you read the order of determination. There's just some sort of administrative mistake in how those minutes were made. You did not find the violation or find no violation on the things that were asked. So you should take that's why it's so confusing as to what to do right now, because nothing actually happened. You should take this motion, remove the continuing to the call and filed otherwise, and say, refer back to the full task force with those findings. So the task force can then decide whether or not there was a violation in this case. So please read the OD. Second, regarding signal settings, or not signal settings, actually, regarding the original request, it says, quote, all communications to or from Chesa Boudin regarding Thomas Osley, including emails, phone records, texts, letters, memos, and written communications, including meeting, telecom notes, whether communicated by public or private telephone, smartphone, computer, laptops, or through other means, January 1, 2019 to present. They did not say just search Boudin's phone. They did not say not searching the rest of the agency. As you know, the obligation of the agency is to search the agency's entire constructive records in the agency's constructive possession, which includes that IT search they did not conduct until later. That in and of itself is the violation and should be referred back to the full task force. And the full task force should have the right to find the violation. They didn't do that email search until you told them, which is not legal. They have to do the full search of all places that the records could be, not just Chesa Boudin's own email, but every other person who communicated to or from Chesa Boudin. Those are still records that match this query, and they did not do so at the beginning. They've told you so. They did it later only when this committee insisted on it, and you need to refer back to the full task force so some sort of ruling up or down is made. Thank you.
You are muted.
I'm speaking, but I'm hearing a lot of feedback. So I'm asking that anyone who's not speaking, please put yourself on mute. Mr. Anonymous number 3, thank you for your comments. Mr. Warfield, Ms. Leger will tell you when she's ready with the timer, and then you may speak.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you may speak.
Let me know when to start.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and reachable by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-05444. I would like to say that because I had another meeting that I was trying to follow as well, which conflicts with yours, namely the Board of Supervisors. I haven't been able to hear the full story here today, and I'm not up in the details previously. I would certainly appreciate the comments that Anonymous 3 made just before me, and I would take those into very strong consideration. There are 3 points that I find relevant, and I'm not sure whether they're specifically relevant to this case. So I'll make my 3 points. 67.29-7 says correspondence and records shall be maintained. The mayor and all department heads shall maintain and preserve in a professional and businesslike manner all documents and correspondence, including but not limited to, and then it goes on with a list. I don't understand how the technology can be allowed to make off with records and that that's legal. There is a requirement to maintain records in a professional manner. Furthermore, the ordinance has not neglected to talk about technology when it talks at my second point, 67.21-1, policy regarding use and purchase of computer systems. It is the policy of the City and County of San Francisco to utilize computer technology in order to reduce the cost of public records management, including and so on and so forth, and design these systems to ensure convenient, efficient, and economical public access to records, and shall make public records easily accessible over public networks such as the internet. And then that was section A, and then the section B3, B as in boy 3, implementing a system that permits making records. This has to be a goal of departments.
Seconds.
They have to implement a system that permits making records available through the largest nonprofit and so on and so forth, with requirement for security. In other words, when anything is acquired or used, it has to be something that will make it more accessible. I don't see how something that disappears records is legal in the first place. And finally, with respect to respecting what you're told by the respondent, I think you have to basically listen to and prefer what the complainant says under the law, and not give any special credence to the respondent. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other members of the public wishing to make comment on this matter? I hear someone. Could you please speak up? Hello. Is there someone trying to make public comment? If you're speaking now, we can't hear you. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, I think that may have been someone, I think that might have been background noise. Members, let's talk about this. I actually did look at the order of determination and I found it confusing. But because we had an order of determination, it seemed that this was a compliance follow-up. Member Wong, you seem to think that, were you going to say something on this matter?
I just also read the order of determination, which is unclear as there was a 7-day continuance, which was on June 5th. No, the decision was made May 5th. And so it's been quite a long time since then. I don't know if it was specifically not found.
The thing that's confusing is that the whole complaint sits at the top and it's an order of determination. Mr. Young, can you tell us, was this an error that this was filed as an order of determination, or was this supposed to be an order of determination purely for compliance on this? It seems like that things may have happened out of order.
Correct. It started off as a motion to find violation, but that was withdrawn, and then there was the motion to continue. I believe you are correct. There probably should not have been an OD. It should have just been instructions.
I think that's why we got
believe-
confused.
I believe the speaker was correct. We probably should refer this back to the full task force with your findings.
Okay.
I'd like to amend my motion.
Why, at this point, I think you maybe, yes, let's amend, not rescind, but since we're going to make a major amendment, we will allow another round of public comment, but please go ahead and amend your motion.
Yeah, I believe the first part still stands, and the part where we do the call the chair can omit and just refer back to the or it's still the call the chair, but it's not for the order of determination. It's for further.
No, I think we just refer back to the full task force.
Okay.
These are our findings, and
Right.
we're referring back to the full task force.
Yes. Do you want to make any recommendations with that referral?
I think we were asked to do a specific thing, and then I think we're going to respond. I think our response actually, our response is a clear response based on what was requested of our committee, and I'd like to keep it to that and not venture further afield.
I agree.
So we're not continuing this for 60 days, but the
No.
original motion, what about that part?
The original part of the motion still stands where they state their findings. However, instead of continuing it, they are referring it to full task force in response to their question.
So that the task force may proceed with considering the case.
Yes.
All right. So I have
The second agree.
Member Wong, do you support the modification of the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Since we've had a major modification, I would like to reopen this for public comment. Would anyone like to make public comment on the new motion?
Before we do that,
Yes.
I'll make sure I've got the motion correct.
Okay.
Moved by member Neighbors, second by member Wong, that Chesapeake and the district attorney's office have complied with requests for a search of Signal and other messaging apps related to the original requests and have found no additional responsive records and are referring the matter to the task force so that they may proceed with considering the case. And we will say nothing about the matter within 60 days.
Correct.
Are you taking public comment here?
Yes, I was waiting for Ms. Leger to finish her notes.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make sure I amended the motion. Okay.
Ms. Leger, are you ready for us to?
Okay. We have, I'm ready for public comment. Do we
Okay.
have answers?
Is there anyone who'd like to make public comment? We'll be creating a queue. Please tell us if you'd like to make public comment on this matter, on this motion.
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous number 3, you're first in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on this new motion?
Yes, please. Peter Warfield.
Mr. Warfield, you're second in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on this new motion? I'm not hearing anyone, but we'll make one last call after Mr. Warfield. Anonymous number 3, when Ms. Leger is ready with the timer, she'll let you know that you may begin speaking.
So are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So, yes, I think this is the right motion, and what the full task force does, because remember, it had suggested a number of violations at the time. You do need to finish that investigation and see if you believe those violations did occur. As I'm, reading through the packet and listening to every time Mr. Andrews and the DA's office have come here, I do believe there was at least one violation, there may be more, about the fact that they did not conduct a complete search that would have produced all records in the constructive possession of the district attorney's office at the time of the original request. And you've proven it in the recordings of these hearings. And that in and of itself is a violation of the ordinance. Yes, apparently they represent to you that there is no records. Sorry, there are no records after that search, but they were required by law to conduct that search at the time of the original request. As Mr. Andrews says, if they do really have auto deletion, they won't stick around now, and he'll never be able to solve that problem. And I do understand the nuance in what your deputy city attorney and you have discussed here. The original request here said communications about Thomas Osley. And maybe it's the case that the signal message that gets sent when you change the setting about disappearing messages, not, quote, about Thomas Osley. But I just want to remind you, the Office of the City Attorney advised this task force that metadata was not a public record, and you have never agreed with them. Just because Herrera says something doesn't make it right, and you often disagree with him and rule exactly the opposite way that Herrera advises folks over and over again, because you interpret the Sunshine Ordinance as required by the Constitution broadly and not narrowly. And for those of you who haven't used Signal, I'd suggest you try it out. It absolutely sends like an actual sentence message between the two parties when you change the setting. And that message about changing the setting is a writing under San Gabriel Tribune versus Superior Court 1983, which considers every possible kind of record to be subject to Public Records Act, unless it's, quote, purely personal. And the retention of messages about public business is not in any way, quote, purely personal. But as some people alluded to this, I will go fight for that myself somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Warfield, when Ms. Lachey gives you the signal, you may begin speaking.
Thank you.
Mr. Warfield, you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. As I said before, we're not a party to this, and unfortunately I haven't been able to study this as closely as seems would be very useful, but I'd certainly second what the previous speaker said, Anonymous 3, and that is that timing is very important. One is tempted to say timing is everything, and especially when people are making off with messages right and left, apparently without regard to what looks to me like a requirement for the maintenance of correspondence and records. As I mentioned in section 67.29-7. I'd also be curious to see whether there was any effort to evaluate even the use of Signal and whether it satisfies in any way the policy regarding use and purchase of computer systems as it's enunciated in section 67.21-1. The chair at some point in the discussion said, there's nothing we can do about messages that were deleted. Well, it's true that you can't bring them back from the dead, but you certainly can find that there's a violation that they were deleted, that they were not retained in a professional manner. If there are any records retention rules that the district attorney might have, certainly that might be interesting to see. But these very short deletion times, aside from the question of whether they are legal, create the problem of, they intensify the problem of timeliness, the timeliness of the search. And as Anonymous 3 has said, had the search been done when it should have been done, at the time of the request and not whatever, months, years later, then I know it wasn't years, but this is going to be something that agencies are going to use. Oh, well, we did it eventually. The timing, the response has to be prompt and appropriate to the request. And if it's not, that's a problem on its own, particularly when there are short deletion times, as seems to be the case with Signal. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment on this motion? You have to press *6 to unmute yourself. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment? Hearing none, are we ready for a vote on this motion? Okay, Ms. Leger, please call the vote. Call the vote.
Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Moved by Member Neighbors, second by Member Wong, to move that Chesapeake Dean and the District Attorney's Office have complied with the request for a search of Signal and other messaging apps related to the original records request and have found no additional responsive records, and is referring the matter to the task force so that they may proceed with reconsidering the case.
Thank you. And I want to thank both the petitioner and the respondent on this. And I am sorry for the confusion that was caused by this procedural issue. That seems it should not have been an order of determination. This does need to go back to the full task force. And we appreciate your patience with this. Thank you for being here today. Let's call the next item, please. Thank you.
Item number 5, file number 20093, complaint filed by Carl Kramer against the Department of Public Works for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721 by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and or complete manner. This matter was on June 2nd, 2021. The task force moved to recommend that the matter be continued pending an exchange of records between the parties and referred the matter to the Compliance and Amendments Committee for monitoring.
Okay, so I'd like to ask, Mr. Kramer, are you here today? I'd like to remind everyone you need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Mr. Kramer, we're not hearing you. Are you here today, or is there someone representing Mr. Kramer? Okay, great. Mr. Kramer, thank you. We can hear you. Is there someone here representing the respondent? Do we have someone here from? Please go ahead.
David Steinberg from Public.
Mr. Steinberg, thank you for being here today. Mr. Kramer, let's hear from you first. Could you give us a brief update about the exchange of records, and can you tell us where we are at the moment with this matter?
Yes. So the complaint is filed for a failing to respond in 2021. So the initial request was for information was sent June 11th, 2020, or I should say it was for last year, for 2020. And then the complaint was filed July 25th, 2020. There was a hearing of the complaint committee on April 20th, 2021, and I had agreed to withdraw the complaint if I received the type of figures for the upcoming fiscal year 21-22 that I had requested last year. And the agreement was for the way I saw it was for the department to be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
We did receive figures for fiscal year 2021 much later, but basically the department sent a lot of contracts to us that we had to look over and kind of track where there were increases in the funding. The controller's office had listed that they had allocated $250,000 to the Department of Public Works. All we were able to see and what we were looking at was around $86,000. David Steinberg did respond with sending some documents. He did send a submission, the budget submission checklist that's required for fiscal year 21-22. He did, send a spreadsheet with the cost estimate, for those budget calculations. Send an email exchange with the controller's office. But looking over the information again, it just wasn't transparent, and there seemed to be a lot of obfuscation in the information that was provided to us, and so I replied back with some further questions I had on that information. He replied back with a response from Devin McCauley. And then the response from Devin McCauley was even more obtuse. My response was that the agreement we had made was that that the department be more transparent in kind of a response in their interactions with us. I'm sure David's going to argue, well, we provided some documents and now, they're asking further questions. But, the complaint from before had to do with timeliness. There's slowness in responding. We, have had ongoing complaints with slowness in responding to information requests. And I don't feel they lived up to the agreement that, that they had, that I felt that, we had from the complaint committee hearing.
Okay, your time is up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Mr. Steinberg, we'd like to give you a chance to respond.
Okay, Cheryl, tell me when I can go.
Go ahead, David.
Thank you. So Chair LaHood and members of the committee, my name is David Steinberg. I'm custodian of records for San Francisco Public Works. So the complaint from Mr. Kramer was over a request for documents covering a previous fiscal year, as he mentioned. I need to point out again that we did in fact provide all of those documents that were responsive to the request that this case refers to. The complaint committee actually agreed with me and only recommended a violation for timeliness, which I disagree with, and I can talk about that if you want, not withholding. The information in the agenda and on the complaint committee minutes are actually incorrect. They specifically said there were no withholding violations. You can listen to the audio if you want. So when we pointed out to Mr. Kramer that we provided him the requested documents and asked that he withdraw the complaint initially before we were ever before the committees, he said that he would if we got him the additional information, the same information for a different fiscal year. So we sent Mr. Kramer that information on June 2nd. He followed up, asked a few more questions. I responded with more information on June 10th. He wrote back on June 11th that he asked for additional information. I wrote back that same day saying I'd provided him the documents requested, and then I went to staff and got answers to his questions, even though that is not what is required by the Sunshine Ordinance. Normally we get documents, but I went ahead and I forwarded the questions. On June 14th, he wrote again with new questions. So I followed up again June 15th and June 22nd and asked, are there documents that you don't have that I can provide you? And I put him in touch with Devin McCauley, who's our head of our budget team. He finally responded both to me and to Cheryl, who had sent a note saying, are you withdrawing your request, saying that we weren't being transparent and he's going forward with the complaint. So, it's very frustrating because as Chair LaHood noted in an earlier case today, requested for a discrete set of records, not an ever-changing list of possible documents. To be clear, all the records that we had that were responsive to Mr. Kramer's initial request, which is the subject of this complaint, were given to him even before we appeared at the complaint committee or the full task force. He already had them when he heard the complaint. And the only time we actually knew that he had filed a complaint was when Cheryl sent a note to me saying, someone just filed this complaint. Are you missing it? And that's when we get into the whole issue of, it didn't sound like a records request, and we can go into the whole issue of timeliness. So we provided the records that Mr. Kramer requested, period. Given that fact, I asked that the committee recommend dismissal of the case against Public Works. And if Mr. Kramer wants additional records, he can submit a new record request, and we'll be happy to respond to it as is required. And again, I'm happy to talk about the timeliness issue because that is a real issue with his complaints against both our department and several other departments. But that's all I have for now. Thank you.
So thank you, petitioner and respondent. Committee members, I am, so we had this it was at complaints, it was at the full task force, sent to us because maybe a deal was going to be made. It sounds like there's no deal here. It sounds like both parties agree there was a timeliness issue. It seems to me that we refer this back to the full task force for a hearing.
Yes.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
This is Member Wong, so I will make a motion to refer this matter back to the full task force, as there was an exchange of records between the parties. However, it was not to the satisfaction of the complainant.
And so we're referring it back to the full task force for a hearing.
Correct.
Anybody want to second that?
This is Member Neighbors. I'll second.
Okay. We would like to open this up for public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to make? Yes.
Make sure I have this correct.
Okay.
Moved by Member Wong, second by Member Neighbors, to return the matter back to the task force because there was an exchange of records between parties, but not to the satisfaction of the complainant. Is that what we want to say?
Yes, and we're referring it back for a hearing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So do we want to start public comment now?
Yes. Are there any members of the public wishing to make public comment on this matter? We'll create a queue. Any members of, would anyone like to make public comment?
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous number 3, you're first in line. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment on this motion? Okay, I'm just hearing from anonymous number 3. Ms. Leger will give you the signal when she's ready with the timer.
Are you ready to speak, sir?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So Mr. Steinberg is right on one part, which is that how they handled some unrelated records request about future time periods to a possible settlement with the complainant is not relevant. But the rest, I don't agree with what Mr. Steinberg said. Mr. Steinberg said, well, I think he said, well, questions to be forwarded are not part of the Sunshine Ordinance. That's not true, and the city does actually answer my questions. And the reason is, and you can ask them, because they're under Admin Code 6722. And Admin Code 6722 allows people to ask questions about a department's policies, procedures, etc., and they have to answer them. This is an extra requirement that doesn't exist under the Public Records Act. Is that my timer? I don't think so. It's very useful, and it absolutely is something that they're obligated to do, even if that's not related to the original requester. It is a right of the public to do so. And I do think that Mr. Kramer, it should be found whether or not they responded timely to the original request. That's all that matters. And there should be a ruling up or down on that. So I thank you very much.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to make comment on this motion? This is last call. If you're trying to speak, we don't hear you. You need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, I'm going to assume at this point that we don't have any additional public comment. Members, are we ready for a vote? Okay, Ms. Leger?
Member Neighbors? Oh, sorry, Member Wong.
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood? Aye. Moved by Member Wong, second by Member Neighbors to refer the matter back to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force because there was an exchange of records between parties, but not to the satisfaction of the complainant. Okay. This is item number 6 next.
Yes, please.
Okay. Item number
and thank you. But actually, before we move on, I want to thank both parties for appearing regarding the last item, and please call the next item.
Item number 6, file number 21044, complaint filed by Manuel Palib against Public Works for allegedly violating Administrative Code sections 6721 by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and or complete manner, and 6724 for not disclosing public information.
Okay. Is the petitioner here today?
Manuel Palib is not here today. This is Carl Kramer with the Living Wage Coalition, and Manuel was one of the student volunteers working with the Living Wage Coalition. I am looking through the notes on this
Mr.
case.
Kramer, let me ask you. So, are you representing Manuel Palib?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, to jump to the chase here, we wish to withdraw the complaint. And looking through the notes, I think there may have been some confusion with which department the contracts are with.
Okay, so you're withdrawing the complaint. And Mr. Steinberg, are you still here? Were you the respondent on this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, Mr. Kramer, I guess if you are, so you are withdrawing this, and we are closing this.
Yes. And my apologies to the department.
Mr. Young, I heard you speaking.
Yes. Unless Mr. Kramer is a written authorized representative of Manuel, he cannot withdraw on behalf of another person. You need to have written verification of authorization to be a representative. However, I would suggest that we table the matter for non-appearance and send them a letter stating the fact, and we will have the same effect.
Okay, then I will make a motion that we table this matter and send a letter to Mr. Palib asking if he wants to asking if he has any interest in continuing with this, and if not, that we will close the matter.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Maybe Cheryl Legger would be able to answer it. Was both of our names on the complaint?
I only got the original complaint from Mr. Palib.
Okay, I'll let him answer it then.
Okay. So that is my motion. And Mr. Steinberg, I want to thank you for being here. It sounds like we might be resolving this one quickly. Do we have a second on that motion?
All right, just a motion to table the matter and send correspondence to Mr. Palib asking if he has any interest in continuing the matter. And if he does not, do we come back to compliance and just put it on the record, or Victor?
I believe we're going with the non-appearance
Yes.
tabling
Yes.
for non-appearance, and then we'll send a letter saying your matter was tabled because you did not appear. If you'd like to reopen the matter, please respond to us within 30 days.
Yes, that's what the motion should be. Actually, the motion should be we're tabling it for non-appearance, and then the internal instructions are to send a letter to the effect with the wording that Mr. Young just described.
Matter. All right. Matter. Motion to table. Let's see. We don't have a second yet, do we?
We do not. Do we have a second on this motion to table due to non-appearance.
I'll second. This is member Neighbors.
Okay. Moved by Chair LaHood, second by member Neighbors, to table the matter and communicate with Mr. Palib to table for non-appearance and ask if he has any interest in continuing the matter and to have him respond to us within 30 days.
Yes, but the motion itself is tabling for
Non-appearance.
non-appearance.
Yeah.
Yes, just to keep things simple. Yes.
Yeah, table the matter to for non-appearance of the petitioner.
Yes. And let's open this up for public comment. Would anyone, any member of the public, like to comment on this motion?
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous number 3, you're first in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make comment on this motion? I'm not hearing anyone. We will do a final call after anonymous number 3. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, please give the signal.
Anonymous 3, are you ready?
I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. So I don't know if Mr. Warfield is still on the line, but this is kind of why what Mr. Warfield says about organizational names versus individual names is so important. It's possible, and I don't know whether the truth of the matter is, that these complaints should cite the complainant name as the SF Living Wage or Living Wage Coalition. Sorry, I don't remember their name. And then we wouldn't have this problem, right? And the winner in these orders of determination, if there is one, or loser, would be this organization called SF Living Wage. And Mr. Warfield points this out to you many, many times that it does matter. Just like it matters whether it says Chesapeake or Office of District Attorney, it matters whether it says Carl Kramer or, sorry, this person's name who I don't recall off the top of my head, or SF Living Wage. These are different legal entities, and it should be accurately referenced so that if Mr. Kramer is the head of this organization, he can come and represent that organization before SOTF. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other members of the public wishing to comment on this motion? Remember, you need to press *6 to unmute yourself.
Yes, please.
Mr. Warfield, we hear you. Wait one moment. Ms. Leger will give you the signal when she's ready with the timer.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
I am. Just tell me when to start.
Go ahead, sir.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. The essence of my comment is here. Listen to what Anonymous 3 has said. We certainly agree with that. And it's one of the many things, unfortunately, that the Sunshine Task Force seems to have intentionally or systematically failed to keep accurate track of. And whether that's the case here, we're not familiar with or party to the case, but certainly what's in the name, it's key and it's crucial. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else on the line, any other member of the public wishing to comment on this motion? Okay, hearing no further public comment, please call the vote.
Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Moved by Chair LaHood, second by Member Neighbors, to move to table the matter for non-appearance of the petitioner and ask if he has any interest in continuing the matter and forward correspondence to him regarding his non-appearance. Send a letter regarding appearance within 30 days.
Right, except the motion is just the first part.
Right.
Yes.
But, mhm.
Okay. So next item, please.
Item number 7, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by member of the Compliance and Amendments Committee.
Members, I'd like to open it up to you first. What would you like to discuss? Are there any issues that you would like to take up at future meetings? I have some ideas, and actually, Ms. Leger, I have a specific thing that I think I'd like to schedule for our next meeting, but I'd like to offer Member Neighbors and Member Wong a chance to share their ideas first.
This is Member Wong. I don't have anything as of right now.
Okay.
This is Member Neighbors. I'm not sure if this is an issue for us to take up, or perhaps Chair LaHood is a senior member. You could advise me on how to move this forward. But we all received an email on July 13th from an anonymous observer of our commission. There were some suggestions there in terms of kind of updating some of our intake in order to expedite and clarify the way that we hear and orient ourselves to cases. And I thought some of the suggestions were really good. And it actually, as we were moving through the documents today, I was realizing there are some additional items, like on a cover sheet, if there are new items that, especially for us as a compliance, right? If there are new items added to the packet, it would be great to have those indexed in the front. Because I was like searching through thinking, like, is there anything new in here, or is this just the packet from before? Is that a topic that we could discuss and perhaps then bring to the full task force for recommendations, or do I need to take this up with Chair Wolf and make it as a suggestion for the full task force to discuss?
I think, and actually maybe Ms. Leger has some comments on this, but I think this is something that probably Chair Wolf needs to think about how the task force would handle first, and perhaps Member Wong, who I know has been working with Chair Wolf and Vice Chair Yankee on some of these issues. I don't know if you can tell us whether this has already come up in your conversations and whether it's going to be handled at the full task force, or sort of what might be considered.
So this specific piece hasn't been considered. I don't think it's going to be heard at any point in time. I feel like it is probably best suited for the full task force, since it affects all of us and not just this committee. Mm-hmm. That being said, I would be happy to have like a discussion during this committee if you prefer to talk about it in a smaller group, Member Neighbors.
I don't know if that's I guess that was my original question. Is it appropriate to have a discussion about it in our smaller group, or is it more appropriate to agendize it for the full, or to ask Chair Wolf if he would be willing to agendize it for the full meeting?
I'm thinking that I think it would be good to talk to Chair Wolf about it first, and also I think we also need to keep in mind what is required by law. I know that it came up in our last meeting that sometimes there are lots and lots of documents in these packets, but it's not to make our lives complicated. It's just to make sure that everything we might possibly need, and every communication between, petitioners and respondents and our administrator and the committee, that it's all captured in one place. Sure. And I know, from our perspective as, task force members who have to read through of all of that, sometimes it seems, it can seem daunting. At the same time, we do have, Ms. Leger does a lot for all of us. And I don't know that should, and I think this is, but the amount of work that would be required to index every single email seems perhaps excessive. That said, I think having additional conversations about this and maybe discussing, ideas or ways that we might be able to structure things that would make it easier for committee members, for the public, for our administrator and other staff. I think those conversations are always useful. And I do think this is a situation where Chair Wolf should probably take the lead on figuring out how we're going to have that conversation.
Just to clarify, it was not me who suggested that they be indexed or.
No, I know, but listen, it's
separate issues.
I think it's worth discussing. I think it's worth discussing, and I think we understand why the request was made, but we also have to. I think we have to understand why everything is included, and also what the burden might be if we were try to index everything.
Okay, can I just interject something here is from the administrative point of view?
Yes.
I know that at the task force meeting this month, we had 2 complaints that were particularly voluminous, but over 1,000 pages, and I get that. However, those complaints were over 3 years old. And so there was a lot of material that this particular petitioner felt was relevant and needed to be included in the file. That said, I think the committee meeting before that was in February, and there were probably 15 separate emails that he sent me related to each case that have to go in there. And so I try to eliminate duplicates, but as Chair LaHood has pointed out, and I can tell you my experience on the Board of Supervisors is that everything needs to be included in the file. Yeah. So yes, I understand that there are a lot of cases out there that are particularly, cumbersome to read and to review, and I get that. But just from my own experience, and I think Victor can back me up on this, we have to include everything.
Just this is Member Neighbors again, just to clarify, this discussion is conflated with the discussion that happened, but not what I brought up in this meeting. I'm discussing suggestions that were made in terms of getting responses from the respondents, right?
Now I know what you're talking about. Forgive me. I conflate 2 things. Yes.
I did not. I was not. No, different. So what I'm talking about is a 4 or 5 bullet points that were brought up in terms of ways that we could augment the form and what we're asking from respondents to clarify some of the things that have come up today, right? We could actually have them put in writing that first time around in terms of like the steps that they did to conduct the search, or if they, whatever those pieces are. So interesting way of just getting that information clear up front. No extra work for our hardworking administrator. It would just be an addition to our form.
I'm always open for new ideas on how to streamline work. Trust me, if they're easier, I'm happy to look at what this person said. If you think it's appropriate to send to me, I may already have it in my file. But yeah, I'm open.
This is Victor again. I'd just like to mention that we did several months ago review a new complaint form for the task force, and we did refer that to MOD, Mayor's Office on Disability, for additional review, and we are waiting to hear back. So we've been going back and forth for at least 3 or 4 months right now, trying to work out MOD's approvals and some suggestions. And once MOD chimes in, we're going to bring it back to the task force for one final look before we publish. And of course, our application form, we can change it constantly. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So I urge you all to look at the email. It was addressed to all of us. If you haven't looked at it, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Mr. Young, member Neighbors was bringing up the interesting thing is she's talking about something that is on to streamline information received from the respondents. So yes, we are excited to hear back from the mayor's office on disability on the petitioner side. This could be a piece on the respondent side that might help make sure that we have all the information that we need.
Yeah, good ideas.
Okay, great. Actually, Member Wong, yes, Member Neighbors, do you remember what the email subject line is? Because once you started talking about it again, I thought, oh, yes, I did see that.
Yes, the subject line is improving the SOTF complaint response process. And it's dated July 13th. And it was addressed to SOTF, SF.
Actually, why do I have it on the 19th?
You know, it looks like it was written quite late, 11:42 p.m. Oh, wait, it does say the 13th. I have it on the, interesting.
Oh, you know what? The original, it's because I have threaded emails.
Okay.
Ms. Leger forwarded it to all of us on the 19th. And that's why, yes, okay.
But now we're all on the same page about what email we're talking about, so I think we're good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, actually, so, since you're excited about this, do you want to just bring this up with Chair Wolf and see what he says? And I would say this, if he says that he would rather that we talk about it first in compliance, we can do that. Otherwise, maybe this is just a full task force discussion.
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay. The one thing I wanted to give you both an update on is I did have this conversation with Mark and Helen, and one of the things that I am eager to discuss more is this whole issue of attorney-client privilege. And I feel like I need more guidance. I think we collectively need more guidance. We've had several conversations about this. And so they are, I think, going to write up a memo for us so that we all have something to refer to. And I think if we can sort of have a discussion about this, I will check in with them and see if that's something that we can be ready to have on the agenda for the August meeting. So Cheryl, if we can talk about that and see if it'd be appropriate to have it for the next meeting, I think that would be a good topic for us to discuss. And then we can
call Chair Wolf, because he and I already set the agenda. It hasn't been published, but call him.
Oh, no. I'm talking for Compliance and Amendments Committee.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of workshop things and then help look at this and make sure that it answers questions we have so that it will be useful for the whole task force regarding attorney-client privilege and just how we should, when we are told the documents are being withheld for attorney-client privilege, what sorts of questions we should ask around that to make sure that it is being used appropriately and not excessively. That's
great.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. Very excited about hearing kind of when someone states that, in an email, this is attorney-client privilege. Is it possible that they can make a blanket application of attorney-client privilege to a set of emails? Because I think we've seen that before,
right?
As well,
right. And we want to know how to respond appropriately in terms of the Sunshine Ordinance and making sure that we are helping members of the public gain access to records to which they should have access, and that we're applying the ordinance broadly, and that exceptions are used specifically. So broad application, specific exceptions. So any other thoughts? Okay, should we open up for one last round of public comment? Are there any? Yes. Is that? Would you like to make public comment on the discussion we've just had?
I would, certainly.
Okay. Mr. Warfield, you're first in line. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment?
Anonymous number 3, please.
Anonymous number 3, you're second in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment?
Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, you are third in line. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment? Okay, we hear 3. Mr. Warfield, Ms. Leger will give you the signal when she's ready with the timer.
You ready, Mr. Warfield?
Yes, I am. Just let me know when.
Go ahead.
Peter Warfield here, Executive Director, Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. First of all of the items that you've talked about are completely appropriate for discussion and would be useful for discussion. You guys are smart. You're not foolish or stupid. And whatever you've noticed, whether you're new or not, excuse me, is completely valid. However, these discussions must be open meetings. That is the whole concept and spirit of Sunshine. All of these topics about improving the processes, improving the procedures, improving the complaint procedure and forms. Everything is public and needs to be discussed publicly, and not cleared with the chair as to whether he wants to have it or not have it or how he wants to have it. You have every right to bring up all of these things. And I think you should. And it should be public. There should be plenty of notice. There should be multiple meetings so that those who may have missed the first time with only a 3-day notice can come or review what it is that's even being considered. I think every aspect of the Sunshine Task Force operations needs to be looked at with a very clear and sharp eye. The minutes are way too vague. Orders of determination, you yourselves weren't even clear whether there was an order of determination. Those need to be much clearer.
Mr. Warfield, hang on one second. Hold on. Ms. Leger, could you stop the timer? There's someone who keeps speaking. You need to put yourself on mute. This is Mr. Warfield's time to speak. Okay, Ms. Leger, if you could start the timer again. Mr. Warfield, I'm so sorry, but that was...
Have you heard what I said, or do I need to repeat?
No, we heard what you said, but there was someone else in the background. Please go ahead.
So everything, and many of the things are very, very, very problematic. So, for example, your procedures are grossly tilted against the public, including your unwillingness to have anonymous people anonymously helped with being anonymous.
30 seconds.
And most particularly, having people not required to come to meetings because the law doesn't require it. And it was insane for the group to vote Mr. Chafee off the book, so to speak, because he wanted to follow the law and not be required to come to a meeting. A lot of what you have is absolutely up for discussion and modification and should be done publicly. And your committee is a fine place. One of the things you need to look at is what gets referred to your committee. Like, how about our complaint about the library? Why isn't that? And when should it be? And can you take it up on your own? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your comment. Before Anonymous speaks, there's someone else on the phone who keeps agreeing, which may seem fine, but we're hearing you and it's disruptive with the audio. Could you please press *6 and put yourself on mute unless you are the person currently making public comment? Anonymous number 3, Ms. Leger will give you the signal when she's ready with the timer.
Are you ready, sir?
I am.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to discuss the 2 topics that the committee just discussed. So to be clear, I am the person who emailed the thread called Improving the SOTF Complaint Response Process as a public communication to the task force. And I've asked for something very simple, which is to add 4 things to your current response service of complaint that you give to the city. The 5 things that you asked right now are not pointed. They don't get at the issue, which is what you're ruling on, which is 2 different things. Did they withhold anything, and should they have? And second, did they violate any part of the Sunshine Ordinance? They don't reach that. And I don't believe that those bullet points are part of any formal complaint procedure or bylaws. You are not obligated to go through some complicated process to change what Ms. Leger just asked the city to do, because I don't believe it's in any written process. And my understanding is there may be some discussion at the next full task force of adding one of those things agendized. So I'd strongly encourage member neighbors to ask Mr. Chair Wolf to agendize the fuller discussion. The 4 questions I want you to ask the city in writing to answer for every complaint is, was any information withheld, yes or no? Prior to the complaint, had you provided the written justification for each withholding of information to the questioner, yes or no? Attach the original written justification. Was any information redacted, yes or no? Prior to the complaint, had you provided keyed justifications for each redaction to the requester, yes or no? Attach the original keyed justifications. Did you search personal property of employees for responsive records about the conduct of public business, yes or no? Did you request contractors to produce responsive records deemed to be in your agency's constructive possession, yes or no? And the final most important one, if the complaint makes specific allegations in their complaint, please admit or deny each one. If this was a civil suit in court, the respondent would say for every paragraph of the allegation, we admit it, we deny it, or we don't have enough information to respond. They need to be doing this. I totally agree with member neighbors that not all members of the public, some people are going to be better at doing oral argument versus written argument, but the city, this is part of their job, and they should very easily be able to do this because they also have hundreds of deputy city attorneys to help write such a formal response, and they often use them anyway. Please ask them to go through the Sunshine Ordinance and show and just tell you, yeah, they did each of the things required. It will make your life so much easier. And it will also make it harder for them to run circles around the complainant orally when they sometimes try to do about evading answers to questions orally, which is much harder to do in writing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Sullivan, when Ms. Leger is ready with the timer, she will let you know that you may begin speaking.
Mr. Sullivan, go ahead.
I'm happy you guys are going into attorney-client privilege and trying to figure out what that is. I think that needs to be settled. One of the things I want to point out is that the public I don't understand P numbers. The public doesn't use P numbers, and it might be easy for you guys to find documents using the P numbers, but what we get is a PDF. And so we use the PDF numbers, and it's very confusing. I don't know how attached you are to that. If you weren't attached to that, you could easily do with electronics now. You can have a file number and have a file with the original complaint, have a file with communications, and have a file for that are dated when some additional information has been submitted, and the task force members could look at the file and have sub-files underneath that. And then you could still have the P numbers if it's required, but it doesn't do anything for the public. That's my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. This is last call for public comment. Anyone else wishing to make public comment on the items that we were just discussing about future possible items for discussion? Okay, I'm hearing none. Thank you everyone for showing up today. Ms. Leger, please call the last item.
Item number 8, adjournment. Who moves, who seconds, and do we take an acclamation?
I move. This is my Chair LaHood. I move to adjourn.
All right. Going off. Neighbors,
I second.
Okay, I have 7:06.
Okay. Taken by acclamation. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We appreciate your participation on all these matters. And task force members, Ms. Leger, Mr. Young, see you next week.
Oh, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.